20 car brands no longer around. Remember those car brands that seemed unstoppable, then suddenly vanished? Some were household names, others barely got a chance before fading away. Today, we're tracking down the stories behind these forgotten rides. From overnight sensations to epic flops, we're diving into automotive legends lost to time. Get ready. This is one trip down memory lane you won't want to miss. Willys-Overland. Willys-Overland holds a special place in American automotive history, even if the name isn't always on the tip of everyone's tongue. In the early days of the 1900s, this company started out building practical, everyday cars for regular folks. Just as America's love affair with the automobile was starting to take off, the real turning point came during World War II, when Willys-Overland stepped up with a rugged little vehicle that would go on to become legendary: the Jeep. Designed to handle mud, sand, and just about anything the battlefield could throw at it, this compact, tough-as-nails machine earned a reputation for reliability and bravery right alongside the soldiers who drove it. Veterans came home and couldn't stop talking about the Jeep's grit, and soon, Willys began turning out civilian versions for farms, job sites, and backroads adventures. People everywhere embraced the Jeep for its go-anywhere spirit and its knack for tackling the toughest jobs. It was never about flash or luxury, it was about showing up, getting the work done, and having a story or two to tell at the end of the day. Willys-Overland may have faded from the automotive scene, but its most iconic creation kept rolling forward. The Jeep became more than a vehicle. It grew into a symbol of freedom, resilience, and off-road adventure. What began as a wartime necessity transformed into a lasting piece of American identity, built by a small company with a big impact. AMC, American Motors Corporation. Next up, let's take a ride with AMC, short for American Motors Corporation. This is a name that brings back memories for a lot of car fans who appreciate a true underdog story. AMC was created back in 1954 when two smaller car companies, Nash and Hudson, joined forces. At the time, it was a big deal, the largest corporate merger in U.S. history. The idea was simple: challenge the big three of Detroit, Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler, and give everyday Americans something different. What set AMC apart wasn't size or deep pockets, it was a willingness to take risks and think differently. One of the most important leaders at AMC was George Romney. If that last name sounds familiar, you're right. He was the father of Mitt Romney. George Romney didn't just want to follow the crowd. While the big automakers were building massive, gas-guzzling land yachts, AMC went a different route. They focused on smaller, more fuel-efficient cars that regular folks could actually afford to drive and fill up. One of AMC's big hits was the Rambler. This was a car that stood out in the late 50s and early 60s, right when people were getting tired of spending so much at the pump. The Rambler became a symbol of practicality and smart design, winning over customers who were looking for something new and sensible. But AMC didn't stop there. Over the years, they tried all sorts of things, sometimes quirky, sometimes ahead of their time. You might remember the Gremlin with its unusual shape, or the Pacer, which looked like nothing else on the road. And for folks who liked a little muscle, AMC offered up the Javelin, a car that could really move. Even with these creative ideas, AMC always seemed to be fighting an uphill battle. The big three, Ford, GM, and Chrysler, had more money, more dealers, and more advertising. AMC just couldn't keep up, especially as the car market kept changing. In the end, AMC was bought out by Chrysler in the late 1980s, and the company was officially shut down around 1988. But here's the cool part: AMC's spirit didn't disappear. People still remember their bold designs and the way they tried to give drivers more options. The Jeep brand, for example, ended up under AMC's wing for a while before moving on to new owners. And you can still feel that AMC energy in today's Jeeps. American Suzuki. Now, let's shift gears and talk about a brand that brought a whole new vibe to the American car market: American Suzuki. For anyone who wanted a small, affordable, and reliable car without all the extra bells and whistles, Suzuki was often at the top of the list. This wasn't a company that tried to compete head-to-head with the big names on luxury or horsepower. Instead, they carved out their own little corner, by making compact cars and SUVs that just got the job done. Some of their most recognizable models include the SX4 and the Grand Vitara, practical, simple, and easy on your wallet. These cars weren't about flash or showing off. They were perfect for folks who wanted something dependable for commuting, running errands, or packing up for weekend adventure. For a while, Suzuki even found a loyal following among drivers who appreciated value and low maintenance costs. But staying afloat in the American market is never easy, especially when bigger and flashier brands keep grabbing all the attention. Over time, Suzuki's sales in the US started to slip. With competition heating up and fewer people stopping by Suzuki dealerships, things got tougher every year. By 2012, the company made the tough call to close down its car business in America. It wasn't a headline-making exit, but more of a quiet goodbye as they shifted their focus back to motorcycles and marine engines, areas where they've always been strong. Avanti. Avanti's story begins with a bold idea at Studebaker, a company already known for marching to the beat of its own drum. Designers set out to create a car that looked nothing like anything else on the road. When the Avanti debuted in 1962, jaws dropped. Sleek curves, a low stance, and a fiberglass body gave it a space-age feel, while advanced safety features like front disc brakes put it ahead of its time. Car enthusiasts took notice. The Avanti quickly built a reputation for style and performance, grabbing attention at car shows and on city streets alike. Drivers behind the wheel felt part of something special, a little rebellious, a little glamorous, and always unique. Studebaker's financial struggles brought production to a halt just 2 years after the Avanti's dramatic entrance. But that wasn't the end of the road. A group of investors saw something worth saving. They bought the rights and continued building Avantis in limited numbers, keeping the legend alive for decades after the original company faded away. An Avanti on the road stops people in their tracks, sparking curiosity and admiration in equal measure. This isn't just a vintage car, it's the spirit of innovation, kept alive by dreamers who refuse to let it become just another forgotten name. Every surviving car tells a story, not just of Studebaker, but of the dreamers who kept the Avanti spirit alive long after the factory lights went out. Plymouth. Plymouth was once a familiar sight in driveways all across America. Born in 1928 as Chrysler's answer to affordable practical cars, this brand quickly won over families, commuters, and car lovers alike. It wasn't just about saving money on a new ride. Plymouth cars offered reliability you could count on, whether you needed a simple sedan or a roomy wagon to haul kids and groceries. Through the decades, Plymouth rolled out a variety of memorable models. The Fury became a star on the silver screen, the Valiant earned a reputation for dependability, and the Barracuda left its mark on muscle car history with daring looks and real power under the hood. People trusted Plymouth for daily driving, but the brand also had a wild side, especially in the heyday of American muscle. As the industry evolved and the market became more crowded, Plymouth found it harder to stand out. Imports surged and rivals at home kept raising the bar. In 2001, after decades of shaping road trips, daily drives, and weekend cruises, the brand quietly came to a close. Its legacy lives on in the memories tied to worn bench seats, roaring engines, and the unmistakable feeling of driving something built with heart. Pontiac. Pontiac once stood for excitement on the open road. Introduced in 1926 as a companion brand for General Motors, Pontiac made its mark by building cars that blended style with performance. Over time, this was the name drivers looked for when they wanted something a little more thrilling than the everyday commute. By the 1960s, Pontiac was firing on all cylinders, rolling out icons like the GTO, a car often credited with kicking off the muscle car era. The Firebird followed, stealing the spotlight with its bold looks and raw power. Both cars became legends, not just for their speed, but for their attitude. Pontiac wasn't only about fast cars either. Families drove Bonnevilles, Le Mans, and Grand Prix sedans, finding comfort and reliability under the same badge. The brand managed to stay fresh by constantly reimagining its lineup, offering new designs and tech features that turned heads. The road ahead grew tougher as priorities shifted and the muscle car era lost its grip. Rising fuel costs and growing competition left little room for Pontiac's performance-driven identity. By 2010, General Motors made the call to retire the brand. Yet the roar of a Firebird engine or the sleek lines of a GTO still turn heads, echoing a time when American roads were all about power, style, and attitude. Did you or someone you know ever drive in Pontiac? Share your story below. Saab. Hailing from Sweden, Saab had its roots in the aviation industry, and you could feel that influence every time you slipped behind the wheel. Their cars came loaded with quirky details and forward-thinking safety features that made them stand out from the crowd. The very first Saab automobiles hit the road in the late 1940s, shaped by engineers who knew how to build airplanes. This background led to vehicles with curved windshields, ergonomic dashboards, and engines designed to handle harsh Scandinavian winters. Saab drivers quickly discovered their cars could tackle snow and ice while keeping everyone inside comfortable and secure. Through the years, Saab's reputation grew as a brand for independent thinkers, people who weren't afraid to go their own way. Whether it was the distinctive hockey stick shape of the 900 model or the turbocharged engines that delivered zippy performance, these cars had a personality all their own. The ignition switch was even placed between the seats, a trademark that became an inside joke among loyal owners. Saab's journey ended after a series of ownership changes and mounting financial troubles, despite attempts at revival from companies like General Motors. While the assembly lines have long gone quiet, the brand's unique engineering and unconventional charm haven't faded from memory. On the rare occasion one of these distinctive cars appears in traffic, it stands out, instantly recognizable and quietly celebrated by those who appreciate vehicles that dare to be different. Hummer. On any street where a Hummer rolled by, people couldn't help but take notice. These vehicles didn't just blend in, they announced themselves with a roar and a look that seemed straight out of an action movie. What started out as a rugged military truck, built to handle just about anything, soon found its way into driveways and garages all across America. Drivers who chose a Hummer weren't just thinking about daily errands. There was something about sitting high above the traffic, peering out over that wide hood, and knowing there was hardly a road or a snowstorm that could stop you. Weekend adventurers loved that feeling of being able to tackle the wild outdoors, even if most Hummers only ever saw the inside of a car wash. It didn't take long before the brand became a symbol, showing up in movies, music videos, and the news. Yet, as years passed and conversations about fuel economy grew louder, the world began to shift gears. More practical cars took over, and the big, bold Hummer faded from American roads. Mercury. There was a time when Mercury cars seemed to fit perfectly into American life. Born in 1938 as the bridge between Ford's dependable workhorses and Lincoln's luxurious cruisers, Mercury delivered a comfortable mix of style, power, and practicality. Drivers who wanted a little more than the basics, but didn't feel like splurging on a high-end ride, often found themselves drawn to the Mercury name. Throughout the golden age of American cars, Mercury rolled out some unforgettable models. The Cougar, with its aggressive stance and sporty feel, attracted younger buyers looking for adventure. Grand Marquis sedans glided along highways, often filled with families on road trips or business people heading to their next meeting. These cars offered a gentle ride and a quiet confidence, blending in at the country club as easily as they did at the local grocery store. Owners often took pride in Mercury's unique position. Not too flashy, never plain. There was something reassuring about climbing into a Mercury for a long drive, knowing you had comfort, space, and a bit of style on your side. Over time, however, the market shifted. Choices multiplied, and Mercury's place in the lineup became less clear. Mercury's journey came to an end in 2011, when the last car left the factory, closing the book on decades of understated style and comfort. Models like the Cougar and the Grand Marquis remain etched in memory, tied to moments spent on the open road, family trips, and the quiet confidence that set Mercury apart. Each surviving car stands as a tribute to a brand that never needed to shout to make an impression. Saturn. There was a sense of optimism in the air when Saturn first appeared on the scene. In the mid-1980s, General Motors decided it was time for something completely new, something that could challenge the rising tide of imported cars and remind Americans that homegrown innovation was still alive and well. Saturn wasn't just another badge slapped onto an old design. The whole company was built from the ground up with fresh ideas in mind. Walk into a Saturn dealership back then, and you'd notice the difference right away. No high-pressure sales tactics. Prices were marked right on the windshield, plain as day. People could actually relax, ask questions, and feel like they were getting a fair deal. Even the cars themselves had their quirks. Plastic body panels that lapped off parking lot dings, small but surprisingly roomy interiors, and the kind of fuel efficiency everyone wanted as gas prices kept rising. Drivers who took the plunge often became lifelong fans. It wasn't just about owning a Saturn, it was about joining a small club of folks who believed in doing things differently. As the years went by, Saturn's lineup grew and its reputation for friendly service never faded. But as the automotive world kept changing, new competition and shifting priorities left Saturn struggling to keep its momentum. The final Saturn rolling off the line signaled more than just the close of a brand. It felt like the curtain falling on a chapter of optimism and fresh thinking. Those cars stood for a belief that innovation and challenging conventions could carve out a place in a crowded world. A legacy that continues to inspire anyone who remembers what Saturn set out to do. What classic car model do you think deserves a modern comeback? Let us know your pick in the comments. Studebaker. Studebaker earned its reputation long before the age of modern automobiles, starting out as a wagon builder in the 1800s. The company's roots ran deep in American history, with sturdy wagons carrying pioneers across rough frontier trails. As the world shifted from horses to horsepower, Studebaker managed the transition better than most, rolling out some of the earliest and most memorable cars on the market. Every Studebaker seemed to have its own character, from sleek post-war coupes to practical family sedans. The company never chased the crowd, choosing instead to experiment with bold new designs and engineering. Even the distinctive bullet-nose front end of the early 50s Studebakers turned heads and sparked conversation wherever it went. Families relied on these cars to handle snowy winters and long road trips. Loyal owners praised their durability and style, refusing to trade them in for more popular models from Detroit's giants. Through the years, Studebaker tried to keep pace with bigger rivals, but shrinking sales and mounting competition proved too much. The last Studebaker rolled off the line in 1966, marking the end of a remarkable chapter in American automotive history. Classic car lovers still seek out surviving Studebakers at car shows and in old barns, drawn to their underdog spirit and the sense of adventure built into every mile. Scion. Young drivers searching for something outside the ordinary started gravitating towards Scion in the early 2000s. Those boxy XBs and sporty TCs stood out from anything else parked at school or around town. Every car felt like a blank canvas. Owners picked out accessories, swapped out wheels, changed up the sound systems, turning each Scion into a personal statement. Showrooms felt more relaxed than the average dealership. No pushy sales tactics or price games. Picking out a car felt more like joining a club, where individuality and creativity mattered. Drivers showed off their latest modifications at weekend meetups and bonded over the shared excitement of making their rides their own. Plenty of memories grew from behind the wheel of a Scion. Road trips with friends, late-night drives, that first big adventure out of town. For a lot of people, owning a Scion was less about getting from place to place and more about discovering a piece of their own identity. Scion eventually disappeared from the new car lots, but the impact remains. Checker. Checker cabs once colored the streets of American cities, especially New York, with their unmistakable boxy shape and checkered stripes. Stepping into a Checker meant plenty of legroom and the kind of rugged, no-nonsense design built to survive endless miles of city driving and countless passengers coming and going. People remember the sound of heavy doors shutting and the smooth ride across pothole-ridden streets. Taxi drivers loved these cars for their simplicity and toughness. Mechanics knew every inch of a Checker, keeping them running year after year even as other brands came and went. Families sometimes bought used Checker cabs, loading up the trunk for vacations or packing the kids in the back for Saturday errands. There was nothing flashy about a checker, but that was the point. They were built to last, not to impress. Sightings have grown rare since the last checker rolled off the line in 1982, but the memory never really faded. Old movies, classic TV shows, and the yellow streak of a checker on a city street still bring back that sense of old-school hustle and bustle. Kaiser-Frazer. Kaiser-Frazer came into the scene with big dreams just after World War II, a moment when Americans were ready for something new on the road. The partnership between industrialist Henry J. Kaiser and auto veteran Joseph Frazer promised a fresh start for drivers craving modern style and comfort. People lined up outside dealerships, eager to see what this upstart could deliver. Early models impressed with their roomy interiors and smooth rides. Kaiser-Frazer cars looked different from the usual crowd, with clean lines and design touches that felt a step ahead of their time. Families appreciated the value and reliability, while some just liked having something the neighbors didn't. Despite all that early promise, keeping up with Detroit's established giants wasn't easy. Competition grew fierce and resources stretched thin as the company tried to introduce new models and keep quality high. Mergers, new ventures, and shifting strategies followed, but profits never quite matched the ambition. By the mid-1950s, most Americans found themselves choosing other brands, and the last Kaiser-Frazer cars quietly left the factory. Glimpses of these rare vehicles now turn heads at classic car shows, a reminder of a bold moment when innovation and hope nearly changed the rules of the road. Delorean. Delorean stands out as one of the most unforgettable names in car history, even though it produced only a single model. The DMC-12, with its brushed stainless steel body and iconic gull-wing doors, looked like nothing else on the road. John DeLorean, the maverick behind the brand, promised drivers a taste of the future and set out to build a car that would turn heads everywhere it went. Curiosity turned into legend when Hollywood put the DeLorean center stage in the Back to the Future movies. Suddenly, the car wasn't just a rare sports coupe. It was a time machine, sparking the imagination of millions. Fans dreamed of owning one, hoping to channel a bit of that movie magic. Behind the scenes, challenges piled up. The company faced production delays, money troubles, and a high-profile legal battle that grabbed headlines across the country. By the early 1980s, the dream fizzled out, and DeLorean closed its doors after building fewer than 10,000 cars. Few cars captured the imagination quite like the DeLorean, with its stainless steel sheen and unforgettable gull-wing doors. Restorers and fans have worked tirelessly to keep these iconic vehicles running, nurturing the legend long after production stopped. The DeLorean endures as a symbol of creativity and pop culture magic. Proof that a bold idea, no matter how brief its moment, can inspire for generations. Packard. Packard was once the very definition of American luxury. Drivers looking for elegance, power, and craftsmanship flocked to Packard dealerships throughout the early and mid-20th century. Their cars became symbols of success, with long, graceful lines and interiors filled with rich materials and thoughtful details. Businessmen, movie stars, and even presidents climbed into Packards, confident they were riding in something special. On city streets and winding country roads, a Packard always stood out, not with loud colors or wild shapes, but with a quiet confidence that came from quality. Owners often spoke with pride, repeating the company's famous motto, "Ask the man who owns one." Mechanics admired the engineering that made Packard smooth and reliable for decades. As times changed after World War II, new competitors appeared and tastes shifted toward flashier, faster cars. Packard worked hard to keep up, merging with other companies and rolling out fresh designs, but it became harder to maintain the same standard of excellence that set them apart. Packard's story didn't simply vanish when the last car rolled off the line. Many collectors and enthusiasts still keep the spirit alive, preserving these elegant machines and sharing stories of Sunday drives, grand celebrations, and milestones spent behind the wheel. Each sighting of a Packard today brings back the feeling of a time when driving wasn't just about getting somewhere. It was about savoring the journey, turning heads along the way, and belonging to an exclusive club where true craftsmanship mattered. Thank you for watching our video. If you enjoyed it, don't hesitate to hit the like button below. If there's anything we can improve, take a moment to leave a comment. We're always looking to get better. Thanks so much. DeSoto. DeSoto captured the excitement of American car culture at a time when fins were getting bigger and chrome shined brighter than ever. Introduced by Chrysler in 1928, DeSoto aimed to bring something a little different to drivers looking for style, comfort, and innovation. Throughout the 30s, 40s, and 50s, families admired DeSoto's bold designs and clever features, from powerful engines to push-button transmissions that felt straight out of a science fiction magazine. Stepping into a DeSoto meant sliding into wide seats, glancing across a dashboard full of gleaming dials, and feeling like the future had arrived early. Ads promised adventure, luxury, and plenty of room for the whole family. Long summer road trips and parades down Main Street often featured a proud DeSoto at the center of the action. Car lovers remember those tail fins and sweeping lines, the flash of a grille that made DeSoto stand out from the crowd. Yet, as competition increased and styles kept changing, DeSoto's sales started to slip. Even with loyal fans, the brand found it harder to keep pace with rivals from inside and outside Chrysler's own lineup. When the last DeSoto left the factory in 1961, it marked the end of an era filled with optimism and bold dreams. Eagle. Eagle felt like a breath of fresh air when it landed in the late 1980s. Born out of Chrysler's acquisition of AMC, the brand brought together American grit and a dash of international flair. Many Eagle models had their roots in partnerships with companies like Renault and Mitsubishi, which gave drivers something a little different from the usual lineup on US roads. Drivers looking for a bit of adventure found the Eagle Talon, a sporty coupe that turned heads and left lasting impressions at stoplights and on winding back roads. Wagons and sedans like the Eagle Premier or Eagle Vision offered modern styling and features that felt ahead of their time, especially compared to other American cars of that era. Car buyers appreciated the attempt to break the mold, but the competition proved tough. As Chrysler focused attention on its other brands, Eagle never got quite the spotlight it needed to truly soar. Dealerships saw fewer models coming in, and many drivers moved on to other choices as the 90s rolled forward. Eagle's exit in 1998 came after a brief but memorable presence in the automotive world. Drivers still recall the excitement of getting behind the wheel, the fresh promise of something unique, and a sense that this brand was willing to try a different path, however short its journey turned out to be. Edsel. Few car names spark curiosity quite like Edsel. When Ford introduced Edsel in 1958, it arrived with huge expectations and even bigger publicity. The company poured resources into its launch, promising something revolutionary for American drivers. Edsel brochures showed off bold grilles, sweeping lines, and technology meant to set the brand apart from everything else on the road. Excitement buzzed in showrooms when the first Edsels appeared. People gathered to get a glimpse, intrigued by the futuristic style and loaded features. Some even put down deposits months before the cars hit the lots. But as the months went by, reality didn't quite match the hype. The styling, meant to look modern, divided opinion. Some folks loved it, but many scratched their heads. Mechanical troubles and quality issues added to the frustration, and a national recession didn't help sales. The story of Edsel became a lesson in ambition, timing, and the unpredictable nature of the car business. In just a few years, Ford quietly pulled the plug, and Edsel disappeared from new car lots almost as suddenly as it arrived. For collectors and car fans, the story is a reminder that sometimes taking a big risk leaves a bigger mark, even if the ending wasn't what anyone expected. Rover. Rover once stood as a symbol of British craftsmanship and quiet confidence. Originating in the late 1800s, the company's name became woven into the fabric of British motoring, rolling out cars that balanced practicality with a refined touch. For many years, Rover cars filled suburban driveways and city streets, known for their understated style and reliability. Generations of families counted on their Rovers for everyday errands, long holiday drives, and special occasions. Features that felt ahead of their time, like comfortable interiors and solid engineering, earned the brand loyal fans who valued dependability over flash. Even as trends shifted and the market welcomed more foreign brands, Rover's reputation held strong. The company faced its share of ups and downs, moving through mergers, new owners, and the pressure of tough competition. Each chapter brought a new version of Rover, sometimes with new faces at the helm, sometimes with a fresh approach to design. Over time, financial challenges piled up, and the familiar badge grew harder to find in showrooms. Eventually, production stopped, but the name still carries meaning for those who grew up with a Rover parked out front. These car brands might have disappeared from showrooms, but they still hold a special place in our hearts. Which one takes you back? Maybe there's a story behind your favorite. Let us know in the comments. If you love exploring these pieces of automotive history, hit like, subscribe, and join us for more trips down memory lane here on Back to Yesterday.